Kevin, for the men listening out there, many of them are working hard, but they might feel stuck. Where do you see most people, most guys go wrong when it comes to trying to make change in their lives?
Well, most people don't know where they're going. And that's what it comes down to. If you don't know where you're going, how do you know if you get there?
Yeah.
There was a story, Zig Ziglar, one of the greatest motivational speakers of all time. It was a good friend of mine. We traveled around the country. Matter of fact, we spoke in Bradenton, Florida. It was the very first speech I gave back in the 80s with Zig Ziglar and Charlie Tremendous Jones and Brian Tracy. It was a big auditorium there at the Manatee Convention Center. You may be familiar with it. Mm-hmm. And Zig and I were chatting, and he gave the story of this archer who at the time was the world's greatest archer. And he said, I can beat this archer in an archery match any day, 100% of the time. I said, wait a minute, this guy's like an Olympian. He's the world's greatest archer who ever lived. He goes, yeah, it's real simple. All I have to do is blindfold him, and I can beat him. And I said, well, that's kind of silly. How can he hit a target he can't see? And he goes, well, most people live life trying to hit a target they don't have. Yeah. And think about it. So if you don't know where you're going, you'll never get there. So one of the first things that people need to really understand is, what do they want? Where are they going? What are they trying to achieve? What is their specific, quantifiable, clearly defined goal? This comes back to the book by Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, when he said the key to success, and you can dissect it and break it down into 25 different elements, but the key to success is define your dream and get a burning desire for its achievement. And you can just dissect that, and I have, and you can break it down into 25 different subsections, but that's really it. You got to know exactly what you want, and you have to be driven, you have to be motivated, you have to be inspired, you have to be obsessed. You have to have a burning desire for its achievement. The whole universe, and this is a scriptural principle as well, the whole universe basically gets out of the way and assists the person who has a clearly identified dream and is determined to get it.
Do you think most people are afraid to admit what they really want?
Most people don't know what they want. They've never thought about what they want. They haven't really put any effort into trying to define what they want because it takes time and effort. So they float through life as a wandering generality instead of a meaningful specific. And what they are is they're on a ship without a rudder, without any power, and they're basically going through life. Wherever the wind takes the boat, that's where it goes. Wherever the tides or the waves take the boat, that's where it goes. Very few men specifically take charge. They get on that boat, they fire up the engine, and they know exactly where they're going. And regardless of the weather, and regardless of the wind, and regardless of the tides, they get there. Because they're the master of their fate. They're the master of their destiny. They know where they're going. And when it comes to women, I'll tell you something. Women go crazy when they meet a guy who knows where he's going. Yeah. When they meet a guy, you can talk to women, and I've done this in interviews and all these different secrets surveys. But at the end of the day, a woman majority, not everyone, but the vast majority of women are really attracted to a guy who knows where he's going. Not where he's at, but he knows where he's going. You can be flat broke, you can be overweight, it doesn't matter. But if you know where you're going and you are determined to get there and you have drive, this is one of the most attractive features to women when it comes to deciding whether this is a guy they want to go out with.
Yeah, another biblical principle, though, right? I mean, even in the Garden of Genesis, right? Adam and Eve. Adam, was created, given a job, a mission, a purpose, tend the garden, take care of it. Then the helpmate arrives, right? Man is not good by himself. God has to create a helpmate. I think that woman's desire is to see the vision for where the man is trying to go so that she can play a role in assisting to get him there. Where do you feel this lack of dreams, hopes, desires is ripped out of men? Because you see children, right? There's this childlike curiosity, the dreams, the hopes, the inspiration. is endless. You spend enough time talking with children, like they want to do everything and they can see themselves envisioning doing all these incredible things. But at some point we become men. And is it the world? Is it society? Is it institutions? Is it parents? Is it failure that sucks it out of the men?
There are a lot of people out there, you can call them dream stealers. And again, I'll reference my good friend Zig Ziglar. He passed away, of course, great motivational speaker. He said, you can't be a SNIOP, which he made up the term, and it stands for susceptible to the negative influence of other people. Mm-hmm. Most guys and most women, most people, are susceptible to the negative influence of others, which leads you to one key principle, which is the number one principle that will make a person successful, happy, fulfilled, have an amazing life. It's one thing. There's only one thing, because if you do this one thing, everything else falls into place. And again, we broke down the Napoleon Hill phrase, define your dream and get a burning desire for its achievement, into 25 different elements. But there's one thing that'll make all those 25 different elements activate. And that one thing was stated by Aristotle Onassis. Now, this was a pretty manly guy. He was a man's man, was with a lot of women. He, of course, married Jackie Kennedy when President Kennedy was killed, became Jackie Onassis. One of the richest men in the world, I think at the time was the richest man in the world, Greek fellow. But Aristotle Onassis said the number one most important thing to success is who you associate with. He says, if you associate with losers, you become a loser. If you associate with winners, you become a winner. Whoever you associate with, it rubs off. I remember when I was a kid, I was listening to these audio tapes by these multimillionaires. These were motivational tapes, Zig Ziglar tapes and multimillionaire tapes, Earl Nightingale, some of the names most of the guys may not even know because they were before their time. But these were the titans of motivation and inspiration and success training. And I would listen to all these tapes, and my mother would get so mad. She'd say, if you keep listening to those people, you're going to turn out just like them. And I was like, that's the point. Because wasn't it true? Don't hang around the bad crowd because you're going to turn out just like them. Well, if that was true, and it is, we know it is, if you hang around the success crowd, you turn out just like them. Because if you're hanging around people that have dreams, that have goals, that are motivated, that are inspired, that want to work out, that want to get their body in shape, that want to become better, that want to be better communicators, that want to become more at purpose, at cause over their environment, who want to make things happen, who want to be better lovers, want to be better in relationships, who want to be better fathers, who want to be better friends, who want to be better workers, who want to be better leaders. When you're around these people, the conversations are dramatically different. And it rubs off. Success breeds success. It permeates who you are. We know this. I had a friend of mine, I grew up in Boston. Now, I lost my Boston accent, although I will bring it back from time to time if you ask me if I parked my car out in the yard. I said, yes. But when I grew up in Boston, we all spoke like that, park the car in the yard. And one of my buddies went down to college in South Carolina. I hadn't seen him in like 2 years. He comes back for the Christmas holiday, and he's talking y'all. He's got this Southern drawl all of a sudden. And I'm thinking, Stevie, who are you? But it shows that whoever you hang around with, you start picking up their facial expressions, you start picking up their accent, you start picking up their speech patterns, you start picking up the way they think, the way they act. And if that's a loser, then you start picking up loser habits and loser mentality. And if you pick out and hang around winners, then all of a sudden it starts rubbing off. So you start employing all those 25 different principles, such as defining your dream, writing your dreams down, writing your goals down, setting a schedule, speaking positive words, reframing things. You start acting like a winner acts, and then all of a sudden you start producing victories. This happens in sports all the time. We hear of an athlete who's on a team that just loses all the time, then he gets traded to a championship team. And one of the things in the interviews is they say the culture here is completely different. Everyone's mentality is completely different. They practice different. They talk different. They walk with a swagger. Everyone's got confidence. Oh my God, this is a completely different environment. And they weren't even aware that they were in this loser environment until they were plucked and put into a championship environment, and it rubs off and they start acting like a champion, talking like a champion, thinking like a champion, and guess what? Start performing like a champion. And that average player on that other team, all of a sudden in this team, starts performing better because of who they're associating with. So associations is really one of the critical keys. Again, Aristotle Onassis said it. If he was flat broke and he had nothing, the one thing he would do was go to places where there's successful people, and he would physically be in their presence. He would listen to them speak. He would watch them walk. He would see how they dress. He would see how they interacted with other people, because it rubs off. And you start mimicking and modeling subconsciously what you're seeing, and therefore you start getting different results.
How can a guy have discernment? We all know this, and that's an incredible, breakdown there. You're the byproduct of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and everybody can articulate that, and they maybe even have been proactive in trying to find these right circles. But you and I both know there are people that are going to talk the big game and then never back it up with any action. So if all we're focused on are the things that people are saying and we're not discerning or looking at their behaviors, couldn't we also get caught up in maybe the wrong type of crowd or mentality where it's all just about yapping and not actually taking action? So how can a guy have discernment that, hey, this is actually the right level, or this is the right type of crowd that I need to be around?
Yeah, that's a good question. And the answer is measurement. What can you measure? So you can't measure talk. Talk doesn't matter. So people talk a good game all the time, but they're talking a good game at the bar on their 3rd drink. Okay, well, guess what? What's his income? So we have to ask ourselves, what is a way to measure? I was talking to Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he would associate with people that were champions in the bodybuilding. That was the measurement. Who had the title? Arnold was always about the title. Who had the title? That's the guy I want to train with. The guy who has the title. So it was his way of measuring. When he got into real estate, he said, who owns the most real estate in Beverly Hills, which is where Arnold wanted to invest in real estate. And he goes, that's who I want to associate with. Well, that guy didn't want to associate with Arnold, but he said, what club does that guy participate in? Is he a member of a country club? Is he a member of a cigar lounge? Which Arnold hoped was yes, because he smoked cigars. And it was like, yes, he is. Oh, good, I'm going to join the Havana Club. So he would physically go to places where there were people that had a measurable result based on what he wanted to achieve. And if you want to achieve success or a great body, you can measure those results. Success is measured in money, at least one form. It's not the ultimate form of success, of course. But that's one way to measure success, which is why people would become members of the Young Presidents Organization, YPO, or you become a member of the Chamber of Commerce, because everybody there is a business owner. Or when you're very young, you become a member of Junior Achievement, people that are entrepreneur in nature. Or you become a member of, like my success club, the Global Information Network. Or you become a member of a local country club. Because in order to afford going to the country club, you probably have a level of success. There was a great movie with Michael Keaton recently about the McDonald's founder, Ray Kroc. And one of the things is he was a struggling salesman, but he joined a country club. And in the scene, he would go to the country club and he would see and talk to the business owners, people that had a much higher income and status level in the community than him. They were higher than him. But this is who he associated with. This is who he talked to. This is who him and his wife went to dinner with. So he could listen and talk, and you start developing those relationships, those connections, those contacts. And again, success rubs off.
Yeah, Arnold is a perfect example of envisioning exactly what you want. I mean, it started in his bodybuilding career. He knew exactly the physique he wanted to build. Watch Pumping Iron, you see him describe some of these things. There's the recent documentary on Netflix where they go through the stages of his life. Like, he knew coming to the States, like bodybuilding, Hollywood, politics. Like he had it mapped out when he was in his 20s. And it's incredible to look back at his 40, 50-year career here in the States. And it's like, that dude did everything he said he was going to do. Like, and it's such a great example of the things that we're talking about here and the things that you teach of starting to have with that clear vision.
Yeah, that Netflix documentary, highly recommend and endorse it for anybody who hasn't seen it, because Arnold basically gives you the formula for success.
Yeah.
When he was in Austria, he said he took pictures of bodybuilders with bodies that he wanted to attain. This is when he was skinny as a rail. And he would put these pictures up of these bodybuilders up next to his bed. And he said his mother was very concerned because all of his buddies had pictures of girls up next on their bed, and he had these naked guys up there, with these bodies. And Arnold was like, I would see that, and here's what Arnold said. He said, every night before I went to bed, I would close my eyes, and I would see myself on stage winning Mr. Olympia. And I would be getting the trophy, I would be getting the title, and the crowd was there, and they would be applauding, and I would be flexing, and I would be feeling right now in his mind and seeing the picture, he said, so clearly and vividly. And he said the day that it happened, the picture that he had when he was a kid was almost identical to the real picture of him winning that. You do create your reality. What you put out in your mind is there. I just watched the UFC fight this weekend. Sean O'Malley lost. And there was a great quote by the champion who beat Sean O'Malley when they interviewed him. And this is really the success principles. And if you like UFC or boxing or any sports, Michael Jordan has a great documentary called The Last Dance where he gives the success principles over and over. But this just came out. I just printed this morning. It says, I just work every day and repeat. So let's just break that down. Here's an axiom, a success principle. Do the right things long enough consistently. And that's what he says here. It says, I just work every day and repeat. Training is number one for me. Let's stop right there. If you want to become successful, you have to train yourself. You have to train your mind. You have to read books, listen to audios, go to events, associate with other people. You have to engage in personal development. Warren Buffett, richest man, one of the richest men in the world, said that all successful people, when they first start off, invest a majority of their money and time in personal development because it will pay the biggest dividends for the longest period of time. So training is key, and that's what he says. Training is number one for me. Most people don't look at training in terms of personal development. You think of training going to the gym. But training is just not working out in the gym as a guy or a woman, but training is working on your mind, training your mindset, training yourself with success habits. Most people have failure habits. We live our life by habits, and most people's habits are failure habits instead of success habits. So focus on training. And then it says, now listen to this. It doesn't matter what you have as long as you know where you're going and you have a goal. Guys, please believe in your dreams and work for them. Everything is possible. And this is a great statement because this is also a scriptural principle as well, which is all things are possible for those who believe. So this is very, very significant when it comes to training. And you see this whether it's in golf, whether it's in tennis, whether it's in soccer, American football, basketball. You look at every star in every sport, when you ask them how they achieve their success, it's always the same formula. They did the right things long enough consistently. They trained their mind, not just their physical body and skills, but they trained their mind. They worked on training their mind. They worked on developing success habits. They worked on success principles. They spoke powerful words. They used the power of words to create their reality. They knew exactly where they were going. They had a specific quantifiable dream or goal or objective that they were shooting for. They saw themselves in possession of that goal. They could actually see themselves acquiring and being in possession of what they want, and they felt now as if they would feel if they were in attainment of it. And then the key is they did the work. They were absolutely 100% committed to doing the work every day. Most people, unfortunately, in life just don't do the work. They don't get out there and do what is needed to be done. You have to be willing to put in more in the beginning. You have to make investments before you can start getting a return. You have to plant seeds before you get a harvest. So you have to be willing to do more. Zig Ziglar always told me, he says, if a person does more than they're paid for, soon they'll be paid more for what they do. So you have to actually put in the time and effort first before you start getting a result.
That's incredible, Kevin. Once again, Arnold, massive influence. I'm sure you can see the bodybuilding stuff behind me was really, a big influence on my life. One thing you said there that I think a lot of people miss when it comes to this envisioning, this goal setting, this dream, this manifestation, is he laid in bed, thought about it, envisioned it, but felt it, right? There's an emotional tie to the future outcome. I think sometimes we get so caught up logically, rationally, it's like, I got to do the work. I got to do a thing. I got to write the journal. I got to write down. We miss that element of the emotional feeling. Talk to the importance of bringing that feeling and emotion into creating these future outcomes.
There's actually 25 ingredients in the manifesting, we'll call it, formula. You can call it a success formula, but it's really manifesting anything you want, whether it's a relationship or the health or a perfect body or success in life or money or a better job or career, whatever you want to manifest. There's 25 elements. And if you were to break it down, just the quick element there, of course, is define your dream and get a burning desire for its achievement. Well, if you would expand it just a little bit, it's you get a picture in your mind of what you want, and you see yourself in possession of what you desire, and you feel now as if you would feel if you were in possession of that. So it's really creating the future today in your mind using your imagination. That's the critical element. The feeling is the key. Neville Goddard, who is a very famous manifesting expert, he's passed away. His books are a little older and written in a way that's hard to kind of read today based on the vocabulary and things because they're from the turn of the century. But he was very, very scientific on adding the feeling to that picture, not just visualizing, but actually adding the feeling now as if you would feel. But there's two other key, we'll call it missing ingredients that make the law of attraction or manifesting work, which I haven't found in any book. I've got thousands of them and so forth. And there's two real missing keys. Again, there's 25 ingredients, but there's two missing keys. One is after you feel now as if you would feel if you were in possession of what you desire, you have to release attachment to that outcome. You have to release an attachment to it. In other words, it's okay if it never happens. And this is counterintuitive. But the reason you release attachment is because fear or a feeling of not getting it can creep in. Sometimes we call that lack or feeling of not having it. And that feeling will then create more lack and create never having it. So you have to eliminate that. And the way you do it is you release an attachment to an outcome. This is why in life we always say, when you least expect it, it'll happen. Because at that point, you've released attachment to the outcome, which means you've released wanting. Because if you want, the universe is going to make sure you're always wanting instead of having. So you have to release attachment to the outcome. You get rid of the feeling of lack or not having it. And then it can come in. You're in a state of allowing. You're in a receptive state. The second missing ingredient, which is really if there's one, what I would call the biggest missing ingredient, which is never talked about in any form, it's the why behind the why. It's this. I was talking to a Super Bowl champion, He won 6 Super Bowls. A lot of people don't fall into that category, so you may have an idea of who I was talking to. And he said, I love winning. I crave winning. I'm obsessed with winning. But there's something that's even more powerful than wanting to win. It's hating to lose. I hate losing. I hate losing more than I want to win. That's the why behind the why. You have to have pain. We're driven by 2 factors. Either a desire to gain something, a desire for pleasure, or a desire to avoid pain. And the desire to avoid pain is always more powerful than the desire to gain pleasure. Which is why you see this hot girl at the bar and you think of, man, she looks fantastic. Just watching her talk to her friends, I love her personality. I love the way she dresses. She's just my look. And you have this great desire for pleasure. Maybe I'll kiss her. Maybe I'll go on a date. Maybe we'll be boyfriend, girlfriend. Maybe I'll go home with her and have sex with her. And you have all of these thoughts of these pleasurable potentialities. But then you also have this fear of the pain of rejection. And you don't go up to her because the desire to avoid pain is stronger than the desire for pleasure. I was with a guy down in Macon, Georgia. We're sitting on the porch, and I'm in a rocking chair. He's in a rocking chair. We're sipping some iced tea. It's a hot summer day, and it's an old kind of porch with wood as wooden planks as the porch. And this old hound dog is lying on the porch. It's a hot day. Of course, the dog's going to be lying there, with his tongue hanging out. It's a hot day. And every once in a while, this dog's head would kind of move, and he would kind of howl a little bit. Ooh. He'd put his head down. A few minutes later, all of a sudden, he'd move his head again. Oh, and put his head down. This happened 3 or 4 times, about a half an hour. And I said to my friend, he goes, "What's wrong with your dog?" And he goes, "Oh, he's sleeping on a nail." I go, "Well, why doesn't he move?" And he goes, "Well, it doesn't hurt him that much." You get that? In other words, the pain wasn't bad enough to cause the dog to move. We're exactly the same way. Unless we can create, using our imagination, something in our life that we will not stand for, that we will not put up with anymore, we're not going to move. So we have to have some pain in order to drive us and clarify what we want. If we're driving our car and it's perfectly okay, we're never going to buy a new car. But if you're driving that car and you start creating in your mind how much you hate the car and how fed up you are with the car, and you want a new Mercedes, that's the way you're going to be driven to create in your life the money required to buy that new Mercedes or whatever it is, that new pickup truck or that new blank or that new boat or whatever. You got to come up with some pain, something that is so intense that it moves you to create that obsession or that burning desire to attain something else, because you're really not desiring to get something else, but you're actually trying to avoid something.
Is that the trap that so many are stuck in today? We're living in arguably the greatest time in human history, right? We have everything available to us at the push of a button. I call it a microwave society. You want something, push a button, it shows up. You can order it on Amazon. It's here same day. You want food, you push a button, food arrives 35 minutes later. You want some pleasure, you log into some sites, you get a little bit of hit of pleasure, right? There's this microwave society. It's cush here for everybody. Our ancestors had to work really, really hard 100 plus years ago, right? Just to live, just to survive. But for most men today, life is kind of comfort. Life is easy. You ask most people how they're doing. I'm good. I'm okay. Everything's good. Just another day. It's almost like this acceptance of mediocrity. So is that kind of the trap that so many of us are in? And as we're speaking to creating this vision, having this desire, but also creating the pain, what do we do? How do we get out of it? Like, we can't, take ourselves out of the comfort society, because this is what we're living in.
Yeah, you're exactly 100% correct. We are too complacent today than we have ever been, because quite frankly, we have it too good for too long. And we start accepting everything by looking around at the people we associate with. I was just in Las Vegas. And I'm in Las Vegas and I'm going out for dinner. So I put on a sport coat, a tie, I have cufflinks, I have shiny shoes, I'm dressed up. It's Las Vegas. And my wife, she's all dressed up and looks beautiful, and she's got her earrings and she's got makeup and, she's got her hair done, and we go out. And we watch, every single person is walking around like they're homeless people. It's like there's nothing but hobos. And shorts and flip-flops and T-shirts that don't fit or that are ripped or stained or haven't been cleaned in a while. And just dressed like they're going to a carnival. And somebody argues, but they're comfortable. And I go, look, I'm wearing a suit and tie. My clothes fit me. They're very comfortable. I can be in them all day long. I can go out there and chop wood in this. I am completely comfortable, as the same comfort that I'm wearing this shirt or a pair of sweatpants. It's the same comfort level. So don't say good clothes are uncomfortable. If they fit right and they fit you, they're going to be as comfortable.
Amen.
But it's all about complacency. Everybody else is walking, and everybody's coming up to us going, oh, you dress so nice, you dress so nice. And I'm thinking, and you too can dress nice, just put on nice clothes. Yeah. This isn't like, magic.
That was the standard a long time ago. You look at old black and white photos of people traveling, you see an airplane, everybody's got a suit on. The guys are dressed to the nines. Like
but when I travel, I put a suit and tie on, or at least a sport coat, and I got my fedora hat on. I got a sport coat. I got my pants on, and I have pants like from the 40s, so they're a little bigger with pleats and they're kind of high. So I look like I'm a time traveler anyways. So I'm there in line, and this older woman comes up to me and she goes, you look like we used to look back in the 70s and the 60s when we were on planes. And I said, yes, I'm a time traveler. That's, But I like to, I have nice clothes. I like to dress up. And I'm not saying people have to do that, because it is a different world. I definitely look out of place. But the point is, in answer to your question directly, how do we get out of that level of complacency? The answer is, who do you associate with? Because when you're associating with people that are complacent, you're going to be complacent as well. But when you're associating with people that have goals and dreams that are driven to get more, do more, not because they want to attain more money, but is they enjoy the act of creating. And here's the thing. It isn't about acquiring money, or it isn't about acquiring another girlfriend. Oh, I went on 10 days, although I have a friend of mine who I helped figure out his relationship challenge, and he sends me a picture of him with another movie star or this, hot model. He goes, this is the third girl I've gone out with this week. Now I'm confident and I can actually meet people. But it's not about acquiring that or acquiring money or things. It's about creating. When you are in the act of creating, whether it's cooking as opposed to just throwing something in the microwave, but if you're cooking, if you're making a garden, that's creating. If you're fixing up the house, that's creating. A lot of guys, I know my dad used to love carpentry or model. I have a friend of mine who loves making models, like model airplanes and things, and we'll sit there for hours with some glue and making things. That's the act of creating. So when we're in the act of creating, that's actually when we're the happiest. It's the journey is the reward. That's why they say success is a journey, not a destination. But the journey is actually the reward. It's the act of creating that gives us the happiness. Think about this. If you have kids and you go to the beach and your son says, I want to build a sandcastle. He doesn't say, I want to have a sandcastle. He says, I want to build a sandcastle. And once it's built, the pleasure's done. It's like, let's destroy it and start all over again. Right? Right or wrong? It's about building it, not about having it.
Once again, that childlike curiosity. I know there's multiple scriptures, in order to, reach the kingdom of God here on earth, like you have to return back to a childlike state. And, I think that this is a good transition here. We've talked a bit about law of attraction, manifestation here. I think some people, specifically our audience, we have a dominant Christian-based audience. A lot of guys are men of faith. I think sometimes people struggle, they wrestle with this idea of the law of attraction, manifestation, and what role, maybe God or belief in God plays in it. How do you specifically, Kevin, reconcile the spiritual laws like the law of attraction with a belief in God, or maybe what you'd call like a divine purpose?
Well, there's tons of scriptures that talk specifically about manifesting or creating and about money. One, for example, is St. Paul when he said, above all things, I want you to prosper. And the word prosper, the Greek word is translated prosper, but it can actually be translated into, above all things, I want you to have all of your needs met. Okay, so all of your physical needs met, like prosper, have all of your physical needs met. So above all things, I want you to be prosper and be in health, just as the soul prospers. So the first thing is the soul prospers. That's why another scripture says, seek first the kingdom of God, and all these other things will be added onto you.
Yeah.
So it says, look, if you seek spirituality or inner peace or some level of godliness or connection with the divine first, then all the material things will be added. And it doesn't mean you have to not have them. You certainly can. And people always say, well, Jesus was poor. How do you reconcile that? Well, there's an argument there. Judas was the treasurer of the Jesus group. Poor people don't need treasurers. That number one. Number two, when they crucified Jesus, of course, they said we couldn't share his cloak because it was a cloak. A cloak was a one-piece garment. That means it was made from one piece of cloth. That was the mink coat at the time. It was the most expensive thing anyone could wear. That's why the Roman soldiers had to draw lots for his cloak. They couldn't share it. So here's Jesus, the poor Jesus, wearing the most expensive piece of clothing anybody could wear at the time. And when he came in on Palm Sunday, I grew up in church thinking that he was so poor he had to ride a donkey, right? Because he rode an ass, they said, or a donkey into town. What they didn't tell you was the Rolls Royce of transportation was not a camel and it wasn't a horse. It was a donkey. It was the most expensive mode of transportation anyone could ride because it gave you the nicest ride. It was the smoothest ride, not like a camel, right, that you're doing this, and not like a horse. But the donkey was the Rolls Royce of transportation. So having prosperity, physical prosperity, material prosperity, is certainly not ungodly. It actually is godly as long as you don't love money and use people. You have to use money and love people. Money is nothing but a tool, but when you get attached to money, when you put money above everything else, that's when it becomes your God. And that's when you actually break the first commandment, which is love God above all things. But when people put money above it, they're actually breaking the most important first commandment, which is love God above all things. So having material things is perfectly fine as long as you're not attached to those material things and you don't put that as your first priority, but put your connection with the divine as your priority in life.
So do you think some people are called to different levels of wealth and material success than others? Because, you open that response up with your needs will be met. Well, if a car is a mode of transportation, the need would be just something that's going to get you from A to B. But you're a man of massive wealth and success, and I believe you've acquired many luxury, exotic cars over your time. Some people feel the need, like, I need that car, right? So it's like, are our needs innate within us? Are they specific? And are people perhaps even called to different levels of wealth?
My dad was one of the most successful men I ever met. He was a welder. He was a union worker, worked for the GE. He built his house. It was a 900 square foot house. He then built out later the basement. We had one bathroom in the house. Union worker. He had a new car every 3 years, a Ford. We were a Ford family, but it wasn't the top of the line Ford. He had a little 18-foot boat that we went fishing in. He painted it himself, to get the barnacles off. Happy as a clam, loved his life, went bowling on Monday night, went to the gun club on Tuesday night. We played cards on Wednesday night. We had all the family over for Italian dinner on Thursday night. We had a fish fry with the family on a Friday night, Sunday dinner. We had roast beef when we could afford it. He was successful because all of his needs were met and he was living the life that he chose to live. He didn't have regrets and he didn't have want. So there's no right or wrong. If a person's goals and dreams is to have a 900 square foot home and have a nice little yard, that's beautiful because they're manifesting their dreams. It's all about, are you fulfilled? Do you feel on purpose? Are you filling your needs? My mother's goal and dream was to have a happy family and have the house filled with happy people that were always fed. And she lived her dreams as a woman who woke up every day thinking, I love my life. I love my life. I'm living my dream life. Now, for somebody else, like myself, I would say, I want more. I feel like I can create more. So are you feeling that you are on purpose? Success is not what you've done compared to what others have done. True success is what you've done compared to what you could have done. So as long as you're meeting your internal alignment with your goals and dreams, whatever those goals and dreams are, and whether they're big or small, it doesn't matter. That's where a person should be.
Yeah. And what you've done, Kevin, is you've been able to change. I don't know if you have kids, but obviously you've changed the trajectory and of your entire, lineage. Because I think when you reach a level of success, everybody, hopefully from you on, has a different way of thinking. So I think your story in what we're speaking to can be very inspirational to a lot of guys out there that have these dreams and goals and aspirations, but are maybe coming from a middle class, maybe coming from, even a lower middle class. So they almost feel like they're starting from scratch, right? For the guy that's out there and wants to build massive success, wants to create wealth in his life, but feels like he's starting from scratch. What advice do you have to help him get on track?
Yeah, you want to listen to somebody who has what you want and has been where you are. There are tons of people, myself included, that started off in a lower middle class family. And there are tons of people that I know that started off poor. One of my mentors growing up was a guy named Dexter Yeager, who was in the Amway business. He lived in an alley on Rome, New York in a trailer. And I had another fellow who lived in a double wide. He lived in a double wide trailer. That was how he grew up. They didn't go to college. I didn't go to college. I virtually flunked out of high school. I didn't have any connections. I didn't have any funding. All I had was a dream. And I was willing to work 7 days a week. I was willing to do whatever it took and manifest my dreams. Arnold Schwarzenegger came from poverty. He didn't come to America with any money. You hear his story. He was sleeping in the back of a gym on the floor when he was starting off. So there are tons of people that started off flat broke, that had nothing, no education. Schwarzenegger didn't even speak English very well. He still doesn't speak English very well, and achieved massive success. There are tons of immigrants who come to this country that are incredibly hardworking, that don't speak our language, that don't have college educations, that have no money. They come over and they work 7 days a week. A lot of them, I grew up, I worked in a restaurant, and there was a Greek guy who owned the restaurant. It was a very successful restaurant. And I asked him, I said, how did you become successful? He says, my family left Greece and came to America. They worked in restaurants and they slept in the back. They saved up enough money to bring the rest of the family. We all slept in the back of the restaurant and we all worked in the restaurant 7 days a week. Then we saved up enough money and we bought our own restaurant. And we all slept in the back and we had a little apartment above the restaurant. And we saved up our money and we worked 7 days a week. Then we bought a house. And we bought a bigger restaurant. Now we're rich. And this is the American dream, right? Entrepreneurship, opportunity. But this is what people born in America don't get. They don't understand delayed gratification. Yeah. They ain't willing to put the work in first. They want to plant the seed today and they want to get the harvest tomorrow. That's not how it works. You plant a seed for an apple tree, you ain't getting a harvest for 10 years. There's a time period, and most people aren't willing to put forth the effort. When you look at Arnold as an example, or guys who want to build up their body, you can understand it. Okay, you look in the mirror, you're disgusted, you want to build up your body, you go into the gym, you drink your protein shake, you go to the gym, you pump the iron, then you come home and you look in the mirror. Oh, guess what? Your body didn't change. Do you quit? No, you don't expect it to change in one day. And you don't expect it to change in a week. And nor do you expect it to change in a month. But you continue to go into that gym every single day and watch your diet and take your protein and your supplements, and 6 months from now, I'm going to see some changes. You're not going to get to your goal in 6 months, but you're willing to pay the price for success. And here's the thing. People always say, well, I don't know if I'm willing to pay the price for success. Let me tell you something. You pay a price whether you succeed or fail. You either pay the price for success or you pay a much bigger price for failure.
Yeah.
And then people always say, but Kevin, if I do this, it's going to take 3 years before I start seeing any results. Well, guess what? If you don't do it 3 years from now, you're not going to see any results. 3 years are going to pass anyway. One guy told me, he says, Kevin, do you know how old I'll be in 5 years? I go, well, if you don't do this, how old are you going to be in 5 years? You're going to be the same age.
Same age.
Except just broker,
Yeah. The story with the restaurant there, and same with Arnold, right? It's, it's that immigrant edge. They come from something that isn't America. They don't have the hope, the opportunity, and they're grateful just for that chance. And I think sometimes when we're from here, when we're surrounded with this comfort, this ease, everything that we have access to, that gratitude can be lacking. Kevin, what role does gratitude specifically play in attracting more money, wealth, and success?
Gratitude and appreciation is a mentality that has to be added. It's one of the 25 ingredients. But you can't live 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in gratitude and appreciation for where you're at and everything you're in, because then the universe isn't going to give you anything different. Because you're saying everything's fine. So it's part of the formula and it's one of the ingredients, but you have to go through those cycles. There was a great scene in Rocky where he's fighting Clubber Lang, and he had reached the top, and he got complacent. He didn't have any drive anymore, and he got beat up. And then he's going to fight him the second time, and he's in the corner, and Clubber Lang is beating him and just beating the crap out of Rocky. And they're in the corner going, what is he doing? What is he doing? And the guy says, he's getting mad. And it was like, you could feel it. Your whole body started to tingle. It's like, yeah, he's getting mad. Because he needed to get mad. He needed to feel pain. He needed to say, I am not going to take this anymore. And that's the drive I talked about earlier that then motivated him to come forward. I'll give you one thing that guys make a big mistake. And if there's any guys listening, whether you're trying to get into a relationship, you're in a relationship, or in life, you're trying to go in your job, the big mistake is indecision. Women and other men love men who are decisive. And the challenge guys have is they're afraid to make a bad decision. So let me tell you something. Here's the good news. There are no bad decisions. You can never get it wrong. You're just going to go on a different road. You can't get it wrong. Napoleon, and I won't say it in French because my French is poor, but Napoleon said, audacity, more audacity, always audacity. General George Patton said it best, I think. He said, a good plan implemented violently today is always better than the best plan implemented tomorrow. Take action now and be decisive. When I go to a restaurant and I walk in, I am decisive. I say, hi, I'm pleasant to the gal who's going to seat us. Hi, reservation for Trudeau. I raise my voice a little bit. I say it with a smile. The girl I'm with is always impressed. This way, Mr. Trudeau. They sit us down. And if I don't like that table because it's right next to the door or the kitchen or something, I go, excuse me, do you have another table? Can we take that one over there? I'm very decisive. I say it with a smile. I am not arrogant and I'm not a jerk. I'm very pleasant, but decisive. And it's always, yes, sir. And I go right over there. Girl's impressed. When they come over, Would you like water? Bottled water, please. Flat, no ice, no lemons, no limes. It's decisive. I know exactly what I want. And the girl's like, oh, she's coming over to me. She's like, oh, yeah, yeah. And there's something instinctive. They don't even understand why they're attracted. Because I'm not being arrogant. I'm not being a jerk. I'm being incredibly pleasant. I'm being polite. I'm being respectful. But I know exactly what I want.
Yeah, Kevin, I know I mentioned to you prior to recording the work that we do running, the Rebuilt Man, our organization that helps guys, struggling and breaking through and kind of finding new identity outside of pornography addiction. And a lot of the guys that we find struggle with this nice guy syndrome, right? Like they would hear that story and they're like, oh, I don't want to ask for something, it's going to offend somebody. I don't want to take charge. I got to be this passive nice guy. And I love, sharing. I love that you shared that example because I think men need to hear this empowerment, right? Like, you know what you want, you've created this desire and you go out there and get it. And it's not done in an aggressive nature. It's done with a smile and it's done with a level of authority, but not authoritarianism. It's like
correct. Let me tell you a story. So I meet this gal, blonde, blue-eyed. She was a cheerleader for an NFL football team, and I said, "Hey, we should get together for dinner." She goes, "Oh, I'd love that." I goes, "Are you free Friday night?" She goes, "Yes." I go, "Great. I'll pick you up at 7:00." She goes, "Okay." I says, "Dress nice because I'm going to be dressed nice. I'm going to have a sport coat on. I'm going to dress nice." Okay. I pick her up. I take her to a restaurant. We sit down and I do that very scenario. Well, the next morning as we're getting out of bed together, and she says, "You know what turned me on the most?" And I says, "What?" She goes, "When you said, 'I'll pick you up at 7,' you didn't ask me what type of food I liked, where I wanted to go. You just decided that you wanted you were going to take me out. You chose the restaurant." She goes, "Guys don't do that anymore." Mm-hmm. You took charge without being controlling, without being arrogant, but you took charge. And she goes, you're a man. She said, you're a man without being abusive or without being controlling. You're showing your masculinity in a beautiful way, in the same way that a woman shows her femininity, not in a submissive way, but in the way that makes it very, very attractive. And this is really what's missing in both women. They don't show their femininity, and guys definitely don't show their masculinity. And I'm not talking about being some macho man controlling jerk, like the old James Bond movie where he slaps the woman and then grabs her and kisses her. I'm not talking about that. That's, clearly not in the realm. But to take charge, knowing what you want, it makes you feel better about who you are as a man. Number one, because it's in alignment with who you are, because you are a man, and that is masculine energy.
Yeah, and it goes back to what you said at the beginning, right? That's women are attracted to the guy that knows what he wants and where he's going, whether it's where we're going for Friday night, whether it's where we're going Tuesday afternoon, or whether it's where we're going in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And, the media, the world, it's been this toxic masculinity. It's, men are evil, women don't need men. It's like all these things that we're hearing and consuming out there in the world sometimes are the roots of what's ripping this out of men. We've talked a lot of things here today: having a vision, having a desire, taking action, surrounding yourself with the right people. What role, Kevin, do the things that we consume play in shaping the outcomes that we have in our life?
All right. This always cracks me up that guys don't get this, especially guys who work out in the gym. They're fanatical about what they put in their body because they want to look good. So they count the number of carbohydrates, fats, their protein. They're making sure that they take their pre-workout meal, their post-workout meal, their L-carnitine before they go to bed. They're taking their different types of supplements, deer antler velvet to build IGF-1. They want to build up the testosterone. They're looking for hormone replacement therapy, testosterone therapy, and all these different things because what they put in their body they know is going to create the body. Well, what about how you feed your mind? Okay, the mind is the biggest muscle in the body. And what do you feed it? You feed it garbage. It was an old thing when computers first started called GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. Well, if you feed your mind nothing but garbage and negative stuff that's on TikTok and Instagram and all these other whatever they are, I've never been on any of them. But if you're feeding yourself nothing but negativity and garbage and junk, what do you expect to produce in your life? Because your mind is what creates your reality. You become what you think about most of the time. You become what you think about most of the time. This is a biblical principle. We all know about the book of Job. And Job was the richest man in the world at the time. And the devil went to God and said, hey, Job loves you because of all his wealth and all the prosperity he has. But if you let me take it all away from him, I bet you he'll turn his back on you. God says, go ahead, try it. So the devil goes in, wipes out his family. His ranch gets burned down by bandits. All of his family get killed, raped, or taken away. His body gets boils all over him. He loses his health. All of his friends turn their back on him. He's all by himself, and he doesn't turn away from God. But what Job says is, what I have feared most has come upon me. What you fear is what you think about. See, fear is thinking about what you don't want to happen. Worry is thinking about what you don't want to happen. And if you're thinking about what you don't want to happen because you're fearful of it, that is what you're going to create. And that law of attraction, it's right there in the Bible. What you think about, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. That is a scripture that shows you that what you think is what you create. And it also says a man, when they say man, it means mankind, person. A person without a vision or a dream will perish. You have to have a goal. You have to have a dream. You have to have something you're shooting for, something you're aiming for. And as a man, this is creative energy in expression. When you are expressing your masculinity by creating, by setting a goal, setting a target. Look, guys, we do this all the time. We're driving on a highway, and it's kind of a lot of traffic, and we see a car over here, and we're thinking, I'm going to beat that car. And you're kind of like weave over here, and you're thinking, oh no, he's in front of me. He got in the right lane. Oh no, it's a competition. You're just driving, but we're naturally inclined to start setting goals and being competitive. Yeah. This is the male nature. It's the masculine energy. Allow it, embrace it. Embrace that. And when you do, you become who you are. You embrace who you are, but you become in alignment with who you are, and then people around you will just be more attracted to you. You'll win more friends. You'll influence more people. Women will be more attracted to you. If you're gay, guys will be more attracted to you. If you're in business, other business people will want to do business with you. If you're in an office, promotions, leadership positions, everything gets better in life when you embrace who you are and get into alignment with your masculinity.
I love that. Kevin, this has been an absolute honor and treat and gift. And God, I feel like I could just continue this for hours, but maybe if you're up for it, we can have you circle back and maybe do a round two, because I feel we probably just scratched the surface on your level of expertise, wisdom, and knowledge here. But I know it's been a gift to the audience, and I want to, direct the guys to you. And I know you have a show and obviously a lot of books and sites. So we'll have all of Kevin's resources and information plugged down there in the show notes. Last couple questions here, though, as we kind of wrap it up. If you could impart maybe one belief upon the guy that's out there listening, one core belief that he needs to begin to embody to change his life, what would that one belief be?
I think what Napoleon Hill said was beautiful. Ken Norton, do you remember Ken Norton, the boxer? Ken Norton was the heavyweight champion of the world. He actually beat Muhammad Ali. So I was with Kenny Norton, and anytime you're with Ken Norton, who's a phenomenal man, every time you meet Ken Norton, he started from zero and became very successful. Boxing was his main career, but he became successful in other businesses afterwards. When you walk up to Ken Norton, ex-heavyweight champion of the world, very successful person, came from nothing, and shake his hand. You know how he shakes your hand, what he says? He looks at you and he says, whatever the mind of man can conceive and bring itself to believe, it can achieve. Wow. He quotes Napoleon Hill. That's how he says hello to you. Because he says it over and over and over again. So I would say the same thing to any guy watching. Whatever the mind of man can conceive and bring itself to believe, it can achieve. Go for your dreams and don't let anyone steal your dreams.
Yeah. Kenny Norton Jr. went on to have a great NFL career. Not a little man, but a little Norton. Love that story. Kevin, the title of our show here is called The Superhuman Life. You know, it's been a 6-year journey and exploration, you know, really for me personally, of my own growth and just how I can, you know, continue to serve and do the things that we're doing out there in the world. But I do this selfishly for me as I've, you know, trying to figure out what my purpose and what life is ultimately about for me. But I love to always get the guest take here. So Kevin, as we wrap up today's conversation, how would you specifically define living a superhuman life?
Go as far as you can see. And when you get there, you'll see further. So take it one step at a time. A lot of people try to set 5-year goals, 10-year goals, 50-year goals, and that's all fine. But at the end of the day, the best laid plans of men always change. So go as far as you can see. Take life a little easy. Be nicer to yourself. Stop beating yourself up. Remember, the most important relationship you have next to your relationship with the divine or God is the relationship you have with yourself. Yes. You better love yourself. Years ago, I was with a fellow, and this particular fellow wasn't the best looking guy, although he was always with superstar looking women. He wasn't a big man. He was a very slight man. You wouldn't want to see him at the beach. He wasn't an articulate man. But he always said this, I love being me. And he did. He knew who he was. He wasn't trying to be someone he wasn't. And he loved being himself. He had a great relationship with himself. And that confidence just oozed out of him, which is why he had lots of friends. Women threw themselves at him. And he became relatively successful in career or business without really setting major goals or dreams. He didn't want to become a multimillionaire. He wanted to live a life, and he did. He accepted who he was. So love yourself, and always try to remember waking up and thinking, I love being me.
I love that. I love that. Guys, many of you may not know the treat that we were just gifted here today. There were so many names referenced and books and resources from the Nevilles, to the Napoleons, the Nightingales, the Tracys, the Zieglers, many of the names that I studied in my early 20s. Kevin is right up there with all of them. A lot of the people that you see regurgitating things on social media and these gurus, this is the original source of a lot of that information. So an absolute gift of a show here for you guys today. I hope you value that. For you guys that are out there, and share this one, rate it, review it. But Kevin, man, it's been an absolute honor, and thank you again, and just for everything you've put out into the world. It's
been an honor and a privilege to be your guest. I love being on your show. We'll have to do it again sometime soon. And of course, I have the website kevintrudeau.com. If anyone wants more information, you can check out. We have a lot of free resources there as well.